right, we're live. I still do not like the new Facebook,
I don't like it either.
but oh well. It's what we're stuck with, right?
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah, it's on.
We're good.
We're live
Okay. Welcome. Hello. Welcome, everyone.
to another fantastic short-term rental tip of the day.
Tip of the day.
You like saying tip?
Tip of
Tip.
the day. Tip of the day. We took last week off because, it was 4th of July like all week.
Is that the excuse?
Yes.
Okay, we'll go with that. That's what happened.
Yeah, that's right. We just kind of dragged it out like all week.
Yes.
We were on vacation.
But this was actually something that happened last week that we were going to talk about.
Yes,
and we
yes.
talked about it on the podcast.
That's right. Yeah, so the podcast just dropped yesterday. And
That's right. Today's only Tuesday.
it is
Yeah.
only Tuesday. But we talked about what we're about to talk about in the podcast. So if you want to listen to the entire episode, you
Yeah,
can
we
go.
talk about it a lot more.
Yes, we develop it out. So what we did was we took a case study of 3 larger, would you call them major short-term rental companies? Well, they're larger than we are.
Right. But they have essentially the same business model.
Right, but they have the same business. So we took a case study of 3 of them, and 2 of them are no longer with us,
Yeah.
and 1 of them is.
Well, that's what prompted it. There was an article in Forbes last week about one of those companies that's named called Lyric, like song Lyric.
Mm-hmm.
That was the name of the company, and they essentially had a very similar business model. So they would lease apartments, in fact, like entire floors of apartment buildings, and then they would furnish them, and I'm going to say place them on Airbnb because that's exactly what they did.
Right.
In fact, Airbnb was one of their big. What made them larger was they had venture capital funding. They had, in fact, Airbnb themselves made an investment in Lyric, and we were kind of reading the article and saying, why did they fail? Why, they had all those advantages of all that money and all that stuff. Why are we here still and they're out of business? And I think we identified 2 major
Right.
things that were takeaways from at least the article that we read.
Right. So the first major takeaway was that they focused solely on one customer type,
Business travel.
business travelers.
So that was kind of their thing when they wanted to revolutionize business travel, whatever that means, right?
Right.
So they had a singular point of failure there because, well, that's one of the things that actually stopped when COVID came around, right? Was business travel.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that hurt them quite a bit because that's what they were set up to do. They had one customer type only, and we've been trained to have 3.
Right.
Right? So that was something like, for example, in our case, we serve generally families with children coming to town for life events and things like that. But we also are set up to serve people that are in between housing. Like they just sold a house and they're waiting for the next one to be built. Well, that is still going on. And a third client for us has always been, well, not always, but it's something we've kind of focused on, is people that have insurance claims. So like the pipes burst in their house. In fact, we had one of those here not long ago.
Yeah.
Where that exact thing happened, and it was an older house, and it turned out they had to rip up all the subfloors, and when they did, they discovered, oh, there's asbestos there, and now that has to be remediated, and so it became they needed a place to stay for like 3 months, and it needed to be furnished, and it needed to be local, and on, right? And so we're set up to serve that kind of client. That kind of thing still happens in the midst of a pandemic. So it's those types of clients that have allowed us to survive because we did not have a singular focus on just business travelers, and that was it, right? And I think that was one of the downfalls of Lyric, at least from what I was reading from the article.
Right. So the tip is have at least 2 or 3 different customer types.
Yeah, we say 3.
Right. So we said, and that doesn't necessarily mean, that they have to be polar opposites, right? I mean,
In fact, you probably don't want them to.
Right. That's really what I'm trying to say. I mean, yes, we serve families with children and pets, actually, but they're coming, this same customer, families with children and pets, are coming for these 3 different reasons.
Yeah, and one of those reasons for us really hurt us in March when everything shut down. Because it was people, typically for us in the
Life
spring,
events.
it's people coming for, and when we say life events, we mean graduations,
family
weddings,
reunions.
stuff like that. And those events
Yep.
got canceled. And so the people canceled because that's why they were coming,
Yep.
right? And so we ended up refunding a lot of money, and some of it was, even if we didn't want to refund it, it got refunded by the platform
Right.
and that sort of thing. And so that was bad. March sucked for that reason.
Well, and that leads us right into the second takeaway from that article, which is,
Yeah, and the critical piece of that is Airbnb back to them.
yes.
So that probably gives you a clue about what Wendy's about to say.
Right, because probably, I don't know this for sure, but probably they were only listed on Airbnb. And
Well,
that's
for
it.
sure, they probably had a heavy reliance on
Yeah,
it.
right.
That you just would if that was your
Right.
business partner, right?
Right.
And so that's another single point of failure. If that channel dries up, which it did in March, and to a certain extent throughout this has been not an optimal place to get bookings. And I will even say that in the past couple of months, most of our bookings have come direct rather than from like an Airbnb or a HomeAway. So we're always kind of preaching that, saying, hey, you're not an Airbnb business. In fact, we did a whole podcast on it 2 podcasts ago about that subject. But that's part of the reason.
Yep.
It's a single point of failure. It was, I think, part of the downfall of what happened to Lyric. So there you go. 2 points of failure, 2 single points of failure that happened at the same time.
Yep.
Of course, who can predict a pandemic? But that seems to be what happened to them, even with all the advantages they had. So that's the tip of the day.
Yep.
And it's kind of stuff we've given you before, but I thought it was really interesting that it actually played out on the pages of Forbes
Yep.
in a very real way.
Yeah, it was a very interesting article. And we delved a little bit deeper into it in the podcast. If you want to go check that out.
Yeah, we talk about the other 2 because there's 2 other
Right.
big ones. There's another one called Stay Offered, which also failed for different reasons, I think.
And we're going to talk about those reasons on Thursday. So don't say anything.
Okay, don't say anything. All right, no more. So there you go. Short-term rental tip of the day for today, Tuesday, and
Don't give it away too much.
won't give away too much.
That's right.
So we'll talk to you guys next time.
All right.
Is that what we're saying?
Yep.
Okay. See you guys.
Bye.